Okay, usual disclaimer for me, I guess. I don't normally do build videos, but people have been asking. I like doing weird builds, so here's a weird build video for you. This is a technician. It's geared to clearing trash, basically, holding a choke point. Technicians generally do that fairly well as it is. It's just a different method of doing it, essentially. So what I'm doing is using the X1 fireball. That's sort of what I'm building around here. And basically just using that to sort of lock down a choke point or a spot that I don't want runners or other trash getting through. So the X1 fireball is basically just a mini grenade launcher. It says flamethrower on here, but it's not a flamethrower in the slightest. It shoots a little burning ball of fire that explodes on impact. It doesn't do much damage. There's a small area of effect. There's a small damage over time in that area effect after the area of effect of itself. So stuff that lingers in the spot takes a bit more damage. It's not a lot, but I've been using this setup for it for the longest time, and I recently switched over to this one. So artillery hammer was my original one, and stumble hammer is the one that I'm using now. And I'll just explain those to you, I guess. So the X1 fireball, your 4-star perk there, it's just your bit of reload speed each time you hit an enemy directly, essentially. So it helps. You're not generally going for direct hits on stuff. Note this doesn't require critical hits, just hitting an enemy directly with the ball of fire before it actually explodes. So like stuff's going to be in the area you're shooting anyway, but you don't usually go for it typically. But if it's there, go ahead and shoot them. And the reload speed helps, but it's kind of secondary with this. You don't usually need a fast reload speed. So on my previous setup here for the artillery hammer, I was using phosphorus munitions, and that's for max ammo, and a chance to get the little explosion fire explosion thing, and the thermal damage that it does on kill, which is always fun with a fire weapon. And the microdot sight, which accuracy and effective range don't really matter for this. This is all about the 10% extra damage. The fire rate's not huge, especially if you've got other ways of getting fire rate. But the 10% extra damage is basically just making this more lethal. And then polygonal rifling, that's going to be the fire rate, and then a 50% chance of getting an additional 10% damage for 5 seconds, and that only works against a target once every 15 seconds. So that's generally going to be for runners, maybe specials, not really for elites. Generally, the X1 fireball is not a good weapon against elites. It just doesn't do enough damage, doesn't shoot quickly enough. It's got an area effect, so as an elite gets close, you can damage yourself and teammates very easily. Although, again, it is relatively weak for an explosive grenade launcher type weapon. And an elite will obviously just tank right through this and keep coming. Runners you can typically kill, but anyway. So this was basically just the idea of just getting a lot of damage in one spot. And then phosphorus munitions, you get that damage over time in the area where it blows up, where you get a kill and you get a little pool of that. Plus you've got the damage over time from the X1 fireball itself, plus the area effect when it explodes, 10% extra damage, and then chance of 10% more damage. So this is basically just all damage, doesn't do much else. However, I've switched to using this version instead. I'm still using the phosphorus munitions, but I've got the hollow sight, and accuracy and handling. Handling helps a little for reload speed and switching to it, but not important really. This is all about the stumble chance on hit. So on hit, and again, the X1 fireball is an area effect weapon, it's a grenade launcher, so on hit you can hit multiple things at once and get stacks multiple times per shot. So you get 6% stumble chance on hit, and that stacks 5 times, resets on reload. So that'll get you, what, 30% extra stumble? Pretty good. I'll come back to that. I've also got the hammer forged rifling here as the barrel. That's a stumble chance of allegedly 25%, and then 50% chance on hit. Enemies deal 20% less damage for 5 seconds. The second part there, never going to matter. You're not going to be close enough to stuff. It's 20%. Who cares for an enemy damage? Like, it's not going to hurt, but it won't matter. That said, this attachment is bugged. You can see that here. So you've got a 25% stumble chance, and my base stumble chance, according to this, is 25%. Now, if I switch to the dual rail booster, which has no stumble chance increase, my stumble chance is 20%, not 25, or 0. So it says it's giving me 25% stumble chance, and in fact, it's only giving me 5% stumble chance. But it's an attachment that gives me more stumble chance than none, so that's what I'm going for here. I want the X1 Fireball to stumble, and I'll explain why I want that in a few. But the individual attachments here and why I'm using them. So obviously phosphorus munitions, that's my choice here. I'm using max ammo, and that's the 25% chance to get the fire patch with extra thermal damage. That's 400 thermal damage in the radius that it's running in for anything that's in that radius. And that stacks if you've got multiple things burning. But like 400 damage over 4 seconds is not huge. It'll stack a little bit, but, or not stack, but it'll add up a bit, especially with some of the other things going on, but that I'll get into with the perks. But yeah, the base setup of it is kind of irrelevant. Well, not irrelevant, but it doesn't help a ton. But anyway, on to here. So alignment module, you've got 20% fire rate. Stability on a hit doesn't matter. So if you want more fire rate, there you go. Augmented speed loader, reload speed, stability. If you want reload speed, there you go. Auto loader, handling is alright, but whatever. Kills have a 50% chance to auto load 50% of your current magazine. I wouldn't bother with this with the X1 Fireball. Like, your mag capacity is 6 rounds. Yeah, you can improve that a bit, but 50% chance to auto-load without doing math, I guess. That's like 1 or 2 rounds per kill. Just reload. You're not usually pressured. You don't need a fast extra shot or 2, so you're better off just reloading, I think, anyway. Combat actuator, fire rate's great on this. Handling and stability doesn't matter. Expanded reserves, max ammo, get even more, and you got reload speed on hit for 5 seconds. So that reload speed on hit, again, that's going to be hit in the area effect, so you could hit multiple things at once with that, so this is going to get maxed out pretty fast. So you're going to be reloading very fast with that. So if that's what you're wanting to do, this is probably a good pick. Flared Breach, fire rate, max ammo. It's an all-around good pick. Flywheel Chamber. Stability doesn't matter, but 2% damage on hit for 3 seconds. Effect stacks 5 times. So that's 10% damage, assuming you max that out, for 3 seconds. It's not terrible, especially given that you can hit multiple things at once with this, with the X1 Fireball, but 3 seconds is also not a ton of time, so you may, I don't know, your mileage may vary here. I haven't really tried out the Flywheel Chamber an awful lot, but it may be a good attachment, it may not be, I don't know. Launch Accelerator, well, of course, you lose the downside of not having the phosphorus munitions, which, that's part of the fun. Actually, let's see this. 10% extra damage, base damage is 900, you're getting 90 extra damage. Plus the dot is probably going up a bit. The damage over time. It's probably not much. This is probably not worthwhile. It's probably not buffing your damage enough to matter. You're probably better off with the phosphorus munitions, that 400 damage over 4 seconds. But yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Launch accelerator, fire rate, stumble chance. There is a stumble chance there, 20%, not bad. That's probably a good pick here for this as well, especially if you don't want the phosphorus munitions. Rapid dispersal unit, that's just reload speed and stacking more reload speed. You're going to have a ridiculous reload speed with an air effect weapon in this. Again, though, I don't really care about reload speed with the X1 Fireball because I don't really need it. So, holotab sight, accuracy doesn't matter, handling effect range. This is kind of a wasted attachment for the X1 Fireball. Accuracy, weak point damage. Weak point damage doesn't really... So the X1 Fireball fires in an arc. It's a grenade launcher. It explodes on impact, and it fires in an arc. So weak point damage... A, it's harder to hit things when you're firing in an arc, when you're going for like a headshot with that. B, it's... because there's some travel time there, it's harder to do it from farther away. And C, because it's an area effect weapon, if things get too close to you and you're going for like a headshot or something, if it's too close, you're going to damage yourself and possibly teammates because it's going to blow up in your face. So probably not the best choice. Microdot side, I've gone over that already. Gives you a bit of extra damage. Shoots a bit slower, but don't really need that. Micro red dot sight, weak point damage. Handling and zoom magnification don't really matter. Aim assist doesn't really matter. Weak point damage, just use the hybrid sight. Reflex laser sight, effective range doesn't matter. Handling doesn't matter. That's kind of a wasted attachment. Reflex sight, so they both, reflex laser sight and reflex sight. Effective range, ADS movement speed, handling on hit. I guess if you were wanting to run around and run and gun with the X1 Fireball a lot, this might be an okay pick to get your ADS movement speed up, because you probably want to ADS with this and get more accurate shots. But I don't know. It wouldn't be how I'd use this. It's not how I use it. Riser Mount MDS gives you handling, which a lot of handling is good. It gives you faster reload slightly. You'll switch to weapon faster, ADS faster. Stumble chance on hit for 3 seconds. Effect stacks 5 times. So that's... gives you what, 35% stumble essentially? Or I think, I don't know, it's too early in the morning to do math. It's like 5 in the morning. But like stumble chance on hit stacks 5 times, and your air effect can stack that multiple times per shot, essentially. Potentially, if it's really busy. But it's also only for 3 seconds, so... I don't know. This might be an okay pick. I kind of prefer the holo sight, though, because sometimes you're only going to get like 1 or 2 enemies at once coming out, and you're not going to have, like, 5 of them coming swarming in. And... this lets you, the holo sight lets you sort of wait between shots if you need to, versus the Riser Mount MDS, you're going to have to just keep that going or you're going to lose that stumble chance buff. That said, it probably stacks pretty fast if it does get busy, so it still might be useful. So, that was probably comparable to the holo sight or Riser Mount MDS. They're probably both good picks for what I'm trying to do with a stumble, but your mileage may vary. Smart Assist sight, zoom magnification, and 10% words. 10% zoom magnification, 25% aim assist, 7% effective range on hit. This is basically useless for the X1 Fireball. Nothing here is going to get you much of anything useful. Kulna MDS, stability, aim assist, accuracy, weak point damage while in cover. Another waste attachment. Don't use that for the X1 Fireball. Onto the barrels. So we got the dual rail booster with stability and damage against armor targets. I guess if you're going after synths or something, this might make sense, but I honestly would not bother using that for this. This is mostly an anti-xeno weapon, I find. Yeah. Yeah, even damage against armor targets, like anti-armor stuff in AFE is generally pretty bad, just due to how it works mechanically. Reason for that is not all enemies have armor, and armor is half their health, and once their armor is gone, you lose the damage bonus, so you're probably better off at other things. Anyway, hybrid rifling, so that's fire rate, stability. Sure, you want fire rate, great, stability doesn't matter. Let me hit induction coils, handling, it's okay. 4% fire rate on hit for 3 seconds, effect stacks 5 times. So you basically just shoot with this, tag a couple things at once, and then shoot a few more times with a bit faster fire rate. I wouldn't bother with this. Miller twist rifling, stability and handling, doesn't really matter. Handling's better than stability. 20% chance on hit. Enemies are slowed by 50% for 10 seconds. That's not necessarily bad, not necessarily good. I don't know. Because like you're shooting at one spot more or less, and you're stacking the slows essentially. And if you're using Technician, slowed enemies take more damage, but the Technician also has electrocoils, which cause slows. So militarist rifling may be a bad pick for using it on Technician. It may work better on other classes using the X1 Fireball. So mileage may vary there. And enemies, when they are slowed like that, if they're all bunched up, even just using the same sort of way, they'll get in each other's way, so you'll slow them down more. Polygonal rifling, I've gone over that, so that's fire rate and a bit more extra damage on a percentage chance. Progressive rifling, fire rate, stability. Okay, that deal 10% extra damage to enemies at full health. You're basically never going to have, you're never going to hit enemies with full health with the X1 Fireball, because they're going to be walking into coils, taking a little bit of damage. They're going to be walking into the area of effect or damage over time left by the X1 Fireball and taking a bit of damage. Other people will be shooting them because it's a relatively short, medium-range weapon. So like, you're never going to get that full health bonus at all. Wasted attachment on this. Ratchet rifling, fire rate and handling. It's okay, but whatever. Reinforced barrel. This is an awful attachment for any sort of area effect weapon. Never use it. You don't want to be getting to melee range and fighting things in melee while you're using an explosive. It's dumb. Smooth bore, handling's okay. Deals 20% damage, or words. Deals 20% more damage to enemies that are at or below 20% health. On the one hand, sure, you shoot something once and it's going to have lower health. Honestly, you're probably going to take the most of the health out with the X1 Fireball, and you're not going to be finishing things with the X1 Fireball. The turret's going to be doing that, or the damage over time, area effect, all sorts of other things that I'll go into are going to be doing the final killing blow, not necessarily the rough and damage. So smooth bore is probably not a good pick for the X1 Fireball either. So yeah, generally with the X1 Fireball, I'm using it at sort of short to medium range, and I'm just firing repeatedly at one spot that I've chosen, that I'm just going to prevent stuff from coming through. Yeah, and I'm obviously doing this like a fire theme. So my choices there for the other weapon that I'm going to be using here, I'm going for something that's got a lot of punch if something gets through the choke point that I'm holding, and I'm trying to get something that has a bit of more fire effects on it too. So Nebula, it's sort of whatever. It's like what's that one? That one's, I think it's just a machine pistol, I forget. Yeah. Wouldn't bother with that. Like, machine pistols aren't bad for this scenario, but I'd rather have something with stopping power all up front, so that's more shooting a shotgun to me. And out of the shotguns that are in the handgun class, the Misha's probably the best. But let's go over them. So Frontier Revolver, that's more medium long range, typically, and you have to aim and go for headshots, typically. So not really what I'm going for. Kramer 50 Magnum, you're basically just doing the same thing as the revolver, but you're shooting a lot more. Kramer short barrel. That's a shotgun. It's very short ranged. What does it have for that? Yeah, it doesn't have an internal magazine, so I can't do fire stuff with it. But it's not a terrible option. M10 auto pistol. That one's pretty good for applying a bunch of debuffs to stuff really fast. It shoots very quickly. But not what I'm really going for. Mark 7 Mod 2 CQB, whatever. This pistol. Can be good if you really invest into it with high handgun perks, but I'm not doing that. I'm not going to have room on a tech build to do that, so it's probably a bad choice. Eva Laser, I don't know. I kind of want to try and make this work. I've tried making this work in past, and it's never really worked out the way I wanted it to. That said, it's also a fairly long-range weapon, so not a good choice for my scenario here, and you can really screw yourself up if you try and shoot too fast with it. So, rapid responder, like the Kramer, it's very short range. You can do a lot of damage up close with it. It does not have internal magazine either, so no fire for that. Twin Hammer is kind of an awful handgun. It's probably one of the worst weapons in the game. It just doesn't do enough damage, doesn't shoot fast enough, doesn't reload fast enough, doesn't have big enough magazine. All these things, and like you can't make it better enough in one way to really work on like Insane. It'll work okay on lower difficulties, but on Insane, this is probably one of the worst weapons in the game. Burst pistol, that one can be pretty good, but also no internal magazine, so not what I'm doing. Combat pistol, not what I want to do, and the grenade launcher, the GL conversion. That's definitely not a short-range weapon. I've already got a grenade launcher going, so yeah. So that leaves me with the Misha. And on that, I've got the boosted flash hider. I'll just go into 4-star perks actually first. So yeah, you get a buff to accuracy and stability on hit for 3 seconds, and that stacks pretty high. You get a 5% buff for each for 3 seconds. So yeah, you just unload and your shot tightens up, and yeah. With shotguns, accuracy is a good thing. It tightens the spread that you've got. So boosted flash hider, that gives me a bit more effective range, which for the Misha, it's fairly short range. That bumps it out a bit, makes it a bit more effective farther out. And it's 40% weak point damage for 5 seconds on kill. What happens with that is, say something gets past my X1 Fireball choke point hold, I'm going to be wanting to die basically very quickly, so I can go back to using the X1 Fireball instead. So I'm going to be unloading out with the Misha, and if there's more than one, I'm going to get a kill probably, because it's probably a runner that's sweeped through or something, and then I'll get that 40% weak point damage for the next 2, 3, whatever, however many things are behind it, and then I can clean those up really quickly probably, and go back to the X1 Fireball. Phosphorus munitions, same deal as the X1 Fireball. Max ammo's good. 20% chance on kill to leave behind the small fire patch. That's more for visuals. It's not really a good choice for getting any damage out of it, because phosphorus munitions is generally a bad attachment for that. Stuff will just walk out of the thermal damage radius and ignore it. But, you know, stuff blows up and you get fire. So that's sort of the theme I'm going for. And then the hybrid sight, which gives you accuracy and weak point damage. So this is basically just sort of standard on most shotguns. You want to get the accuracy, which tightens your spread, and weak point damage. If you're going for headshots, you're getting more damage. So other attachments on the medium muzzles. Got the assault brake, so fire rate and accuracy and stability while standing still. This isn't bad, but there are better attachments, like the Misha. Your fire rate... The Misha's a double-barreled shotgun, So it's got a magazine size of 2, and then you reload. So your fire rate is just increasing the speed between those 2 shots. It's not really helping with reloading. So yeah, I obviously went with the boosted flash hider instead. Nag per shroud. Weak point damage, handling. Every 4th hit against an enemy, increase your stumble chance by 35% for 3 seconds. So weak point damage is fine. Handling is whatever. Well, handling on something like the Misha is basically going to increase your reload speed, and switching to an ADS times. It's a good stat for shotguns like this, like the Misha and excuse me, the Medved, except that reloads a lot and doesn't have a very big magazine size. But the stumble chance there, even though you're getting a hit per pellet that hits, and Misha's a shotgun, so there's a bunch of pellets, I'm not going for stumble chance with the Misha, so it's not necessarily a good choice. It's very much the X1 Fireball that I'm trying to do that with. That's it. It might work out the same way, potentially. So I might have to think about that a bit more. Might be an idea. I don't know. Board mount laser, handling, it's great. Effective range and hit for 3 seconds. Not the greatest choice there, because it's basically just going to bump your effective range out on the second shot of each shot, basically, you're getting. It's kind of meh. High velocity break, fire rate, handling, stumble chance on hit for 3 seconds. Yeah, this is kind of like the Nagpur Shroud, I guess. See, the every 4th hit thing here, that's because you're using a shotgun, you're going to get that basically every shot. So you're going to always get that 35% pretty much. Versus here, I think you only get 30% maximum. So, like, you're probably better off with the Nagpur Shroud if you're going for stumble off the Misha. Muzzle brake, stability, whatever. Effective range on hit. Yep. Effective range on hit is not the greatest. Like, even though you're hitting multiple times, it's sort of just use something that has effective range already on it. Fire rate, stability, whatever. Prism break. Weak point damage is good. So that's going to lead to easier headshots. Effective range is good too. This is also a good choice for the Misha, especially for the scenario I'm going for. Instead of the boosted flash hider, this is going to be more consistent as opposed to more if in a rush type thing that I'm doing with the boosted flash hider. So precision break is more general use as opposed to, oh my god, I need to kill these things fast. Slotted bell break. Fire rate's fine. Handling on hit. Yeah, you can basically just get a little bit of reload speed and fire rate, so that's gonna boost your damage, your DPS a little bit, I guess. Vent break. Weak point damage. Handling and stability on shot. That's probably not a good choice for this one, because instead of being on hit, where you get a bonus for each pellet that hits, this is on shot. So, yeah, this is only going to stack 2 times ever because it resets on reload. So you shoot once and you get your 6%, and you shoot again, you get another 6%, and it resets on reload, and you're back to 0. So, like, this is probably a bad attachment for the Misha. On to the perks. So, all these perks are sort of geared around being used with the X1 Fireball. So I've got the Incinerator Turret. So while I'm shooting out with the X1 Fireball and causing area effect damage, damage over time, potentially phosphorus damage over time as well, the Incinerator and Stumble. The Incinerator Turret is firing an area effect, flamethrower effect, onto stuff in that area, and it's going to be adding damage onto the pile of everything that's in that area being shot. Dynamic delivery systems. Turret fires 10% faster and deals 25% more damage to armor. Because of how flamethrowers work in AFE, 10% faster on the incinerator turret means 10% more damage, and the 25% damage to armor, it's kind of whatever, but it's a nice bonus. And they've got Force Multiplier 3 and Force Multiplier 1. That gets me, what is that? Too early in the morning. 18 plus 7. Oh shit, I can't type. Calculator. 18 plus 7. So 25% damage. Yeah, 25% as a damage increase there. 25% extra damage. Versus Force Multiplier 4. Takes the same amount of slots, but it only gives you 22% extra damage. So get 3 extra damage out of using Force Multiplier 3 and Force Multiplier 1 instead of Force Multiplier 4. That's the same with all 4 of these 4-slot perks. Use the 3 and the 1 instead, and you'll get 3% extra out of it. So it's a little bit extra. It's going to be helpful. Then I've got Parasocial Relationship. So I deal 20% more damage to targets your turret has recently damaged. And my turret, because it's a flamethrower, it is damaging everything all the time. Everything in range, pretty much. So I'm shooting at a spot, it's flaming that spot, it's damaging stuff, I'm getting 20% extra damage on basically everything I'm doing. So that's a good one to tag on there, too. Then I've got Creative Flame Point Solutions. You and your turret deal 50% more damage to slowed enemies. Now, there are a couple slowing attachments. However, charge coils for the technician, that slows, say it says, blah, blah, blah. Toss a device that lodges itself into your target and unleashes directed electrical shocks in the area, damaging enemies and reducing their movement speed. Damaging enemies is like almost nothing other than just to lose you that full health bonus. But the reducing their movement speed is slowing them, which means you throw down a coil where you're going to be shooting, and you and your turret deal 50% more damage to everything in that area, pretty much. Compatibility matrix on the coils. While that's active, while the coil's active, essentially you get 10% more damage, and you can throw down another coil to get 10% more. So if you need damage in a hurry, just toss down another coil. That said, I don't have any recharge on the coils, so you probably want to be not super fast about that unless you just got a sudden burst of stuff all at once. In terms of enemies, like sudden group of them that you're not quite expecting or something. But usually you want to just sort of pace it out. Maximize retention. When a foe enters the field of your charge coils, they have a 33% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds. Well and good. It sort of stops them, and the turret does damage to them. Your X1 fireball lands on them. They're all sort of bunched up because they're being stunned. However, I've also got down and out on here. So I deal 20% more damage to enemies that are stunned or knocked. So if they get stunned by maximize retention, they're getting 20% extra damage. If they're slowed by their coils, they're getting 15% more damage. Okay, so coils are basically just giving you 15 and 20% damage. I don't think those stack, but they're doing extra damage, essentially. On top of that, with down and out, you've also got resonating impact. So whenever you or your turret stumble a target, they take 10% more damage for 6 seconds. Your turret gains a 10% chance to stumble. So because I've got a bunch of stumbles on the X1 Fireball, there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to stumble a target, and the turret has a 10% chance to stumble, so it may also stumble a target. Also, follow-up shots can stumble a target. Or actually, I shouldn't say that, but I'll get to that in a sec. So either myself or the turret can stumble a target, whether I'm shooting with the X1 Fireball or the turret is torching it. And I've also got deep leverage. And when you or your turret shoot a target affected by resonating impact, so they're stumbled by either of us, They have 50% chance to be knocked down, which will trigger down and out and get 20% extra damage. And then the target can only be knocked down this way every 10 seconds. So that's no big deal, because you're mostly using this for runners. Maybe specials. Elites are sort of a nice bonus, but yeah, whatever. So if the turret happens to stumble someone, and I fire again and stumble them with my Exxon Fireball, they're getting knocked over, or vice versa. Or if I shoot twice with the Exxon Fireball and stumble them, and then stumble them again, potentially, they'll get a chance to be knocked down. And don't forget, the Exxon Fireball and the Incinerator Turret are both area effect weapons, so they're hitting multiple targets at once with this. So stuff is getting knocked around a lot with these. And you're getting that extra damage bonus from down and out. Then you've got Technician CQW training, so reload speed and accuracy. That's for the Exxon Fireball. Most of the reload speed, accuracy doesn't really matter. And Technician CQW mastery. That increases the fire and stability of CQWs by 50%. This mostly for the fire rate, stability doesn't matter. Other perks. I'm not going to bother, well, let's see. Scalable machine learning. When your shark kills an enemy, gain 10% reload speed and stability. I wouldn't bother with this. Not for this setup. I think there is another... yeah. So collaborative analytics, also if you're using cross-platform synergy... Oh, that's sorry. No, scalable machine learning is what I'm looking at. Where is it? Yeah, okay. So modular integration with scalable machine learning gets you accuracy and fire rate by 5%. That's not worth the grid space. You're not going to put down 6 slots to basically just get 5% fire rate. And in of itself, 10% reload speed, nah, not worth it. You don't want this on the in this setup at all. Strategic tactics. You might get something out of debuff duration there. Probably not enough to be worth it for the grid space, though. I'm pretty sure my grid is pretty optimal for what I'm doing here. Jackpot's kind of a waste because you're mostly focusing on runners, so you're not going to proc it all that much. And when you do, okay, you killed a burster or a prowler or something, and why don't you just reload? Again, you're not super pressured to reload quickly with this setup. Gold Steel's never really going to come up. Hazard Seals, not really going to be a thing. If I had grid space, I'd probably want Bedside Manor, because it's generally a team helpful thing, but I don't, so I'm not putting it on there. Downrange isn't going to really help you much. Area effect weapons that are like a projectile, like a missile, like a grenade launcher, they don't have damage fall off, so your far distance damage doesn't change regardless of what the distance is you've shot it at. And I'm using the Misha up close, so it doesn't matter. Hit and run tactics, not really going to matter. Probably not going to matter. Maybe on a different class. Yeah, this is not going to be worthwhile at all. Yeah, not worthwhile anyway. Incinerator Turret, I think, is the best setup for this because it is an area effect as well. Because like the default turret, you can make a stumble build pretty good out of it without using the perk space, the 2 slots, but it only hits 1 target at a time, not 5 targets at a time. Particle turret can be good, but this is more a close range thing, and while it's slowing there, you're not getting the damage out of it. Heavy turret, it's close range again. It's just not going to work well. Agile practices. Yeah, I wouldn't bother with that. Nope, not worthwhile. Mentioned that before. You don't really want real-time resource reclamation here. That's mostly for relocating quickly. Whereas here, you're set up, you're wanting to basically just park yourself and kill everything coming towards you. This is very much a choke point build. Hyper-local logistics. Turret fires 10% faster while you're near it. Not a bad choice if you have the grid space for it. So, maybe. That's 10% extra damage, basically, off the turret because of how flamethrowers work. It might make sense, potentially. I'd have to work it out. I'm not going to bother to switch out force multipliers to get hyperlocal logistics instead. Maybe that'll give you... Actually, let's see here. 13%, 10, that'll be 23. No, we're getting more damage out of those because we're getting 25% damage out of that instead of 23. So, not a good choice unless you could find another spot for it. Which, you know, who knows? Maybe you don't want to use the extra CQW perk. One option. Disruptive technology is not a good pick. Generally, most stuff that reduces the damage dealt by enemies is not worthwhile. They're going to be dead first, or you're in trouble. Yeah. So that is the attachment, or that is the build. And, you know, you basically use it sort of like this. Say you got enemies coming through this area here between this barrier-ish ramp, I don't know, blast thing, light, I don't know, whatever the hell that is, and the spool of wire over there. So what you do is you set up your turret a bit behind that, and then you throw it on your coil, and just start shooting. And basically just everything that comes through there is going to basically be knocked over, stumbled, your flamethrower turret is going to be torching it, you're going to be shooting it, it's going to be dying. So it's pretty good for just getting rid of trash, making sure stuff doesn't come through a choke point. Yeah. And then if stuff gets by, there you go with the Misha. Right. I think it's a fun build. It's a bit different from what a lot of people do, but I find it fun, so maybe you will too.